It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm the host here. Glad to have you on board. If you're one of those folks that's joining us live on our website, great to see you out there. I see Scurry. I'm not sure where Scurry is, but I see it. I see Lincoln, Nebraska. I see Branson. I see Bowling Green. I see Gainesville. I think that's out in Maryland. I see, let's see, that. Well, I don't know why I can't. Oh, Sioux Falls. I see California. I see, let's see, it looks like Dallas area. Well, I don't know. Florida. I see Michigan area or Chicago area. Thanks very much for joining with us. Great to have you folks on board, and all the rest of you whose name or cities I didn't mention. Doesn't mean I'm leaving you out. Just means that I can't spend all morning reading them. Hey, for the record, by the way, I have been getting a lot of email from people that are telling me that our YouTube channel has been consistently having the number of viewers reduced. And I noticed it the other day. I logged on an hour after the program had started, just to show you so you understand how bad the Ministry of Propaganda is here. They'll do anything to silence the voices of alternative media. I have stuff removed off our Facebook page all the time, which is one of the reasons why you should be going to Patriot FB and Constitution Club. But more importantly, this thing on YouTube is really bothering me because I logged on, I upload the videos after the program, and within an hour or so, I go on and I just check and make sure that they all made it up there and that they all got posted. I've had scenarios where they didn't publish them all and what have you. And I noticed that there were about 40 views on there. And I clicked through to that given particular video so that I could respond to a comment someone had put there. And suddenly, there were 31. Now, this was within an hour of posting the video. And, when you say, well, I mean, what's the big deal? It's only 9. No, it's been consistent across the board on all the videos. And some days, it's so dramatic that some of the videos only get 30 or 40 views. When I know for a fact that I've gotten more than that because I've seen the comments and I've seen the people that have forwarded it. I mean, they're blatant about it. They don't even care. They're not even trying to hide it. It's open, blatant censorship. And, of course, the goal is that when it looks like nobody's viewing a video, there's no momentum, there's no virality. So they just basically, people are like, oh, I guess, So they don't watch it. That's the whole idea. When you click onto certain people's videos, the whole list on the right side will be all of their videos. When you click on one of mine, it's interspersed with a whole bunch of other people's stuff. The algorithms that Google, who owns YouTube, is setting is specifically designed and geared to either advance you to see more from that particular person and that channel that you're on, or misdirect you and mislead you off on something else. And that's why all of the stuff on the right is not my stuff, because they want you off my channel. Just saying. I'm not crying in my own soup here, and this ain't sour grapes, folks. These are just facts. In fact, the other day after I mentioned this, I must have gotten 8 or 9 emails from people who all said, I've been noticing it too. So, and these are, some of these people I didn't even know. In fact, I got an email from one guy. I've never even seen his email before. I've never heard from him before. I had no idea he was watching the program. And he sent me an email and he said, I watch your stuff every day. And I noticed that the click counts have been dropping dramatically. Anyway, all right, enough of that. The point is simply this, folks. everybody who's on the left is doing their darndest to make sure that you are kept in the dark, that you are a couch potato. You know, you're a mushroom. You're kept in the dark and you're fed BS. That's the simple reality of it. We're going to talk about 4 different subjects or topics this morning, and they're important ones. The first one is the issue of the Ministry of Propaganda and how they are silent on this criminal activity that's going on with the release of these illegal criminal immigrants. Illegal criminal immigrants. They're not undocumented. They are not good citizens. They are illegal. They are criminals. They have violated our borders. They have violated our laws. They violate our wives and our children, our husbands and our families, our communities, our cities, our hospitals, our schools. They are violators. Out! Too harsh, you say? Tough. It's about time America took a tough stance on this. Let me tell you something. Go out there and do a search on the criminal release of 36,000 criminals, illegal aliens, all of them. And watch how much of that comes up and has the name Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Chicago, LA Times, Chicago Tribune on there. None of them. You get stuff like WorldNet Daily. You'll get stuff out there like Breitbart. You'll get stuff out there that's all the alternative media. But you'll see very, very little out there about from the mainstream media. I found an article on CBS this morning, and they actually gave the counts out. I was stunned. It's rare. Now, it was a CBS local. It wasn't CBS on a national level. You know, here's the problem. I addressed this issue yesterday extensively. 36,000 criminal illegals released. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the problem. If you look at it this way, you're going to watch, and I want you to watch and be careful because you're going to see how the media tries to hide this. But if a president willfully, if a president knowingly, if a president intentionally causes the criminals to be released among us, knowing full well that that criminal element will commit further crimes and that person is ultimately then responsible for that, is that a violation of that person's oath of office? If a shepherd intentionally releases wolves into the sheep pen, has he violated his duty? Of course he has. You're going to see, and by the way, I got to tell you, the left is going to come out on a storm on this to try, if it ever makes the mainstream media. First of all, they're trying to keep it quiet. They don't want these reports exposed. These were reports that came out from the Center for Immigration Studies. And, you know, when I addressed this yesterday, I exposed to you the fact that, and I read off the count of the crimes that these people had committed. And the alternative media is all over this like a hobo on a ham sandwich, all right? They're on this like white on rice. They want to make sure that it's exposed. But the Ministry of Propaganda, the progressives, the left, and all of these organizations, all the mainstream media groups, and Fox did cover it yesterday, but I never give Fox a pass because, you know, in one regard they cover it, and then in another regard they do everything they can to cover it up. But the pro-amnesty crowd is going to come out there, and they're going to try to defend this. And I got to tell you, folks, it is time for you to begin to take an active role and an active position as an activist. It's not enough for, you know, my son and I were having a conversation about this last night as we watched a news article about it. My son's 16, going on 17. One of my sons. And we were looking at this, and we were talking about the idea of activism. And he made a very, very telling point. It was stunning to me, startling to me. He said to me, Dad, you know, these people who think they're activists because they have a blog out there and they write an article that nobody sees, that's not activism. Activism is what the left does. Activism is when they get out there and they actively protest and they speak in public, when they fight in a public forum where it's visible to many. That's activism. He said, why is it that the conservatives in the nation, the conservative political arena, they're the worst marketers in the world? Now, these are business people. This is what he said to me. It was refreshing. He said, now these are supposed to be the business people, right? Everybody throws the conservatives out saying, oh, these are the business tycoons and so on and so on. But they're the worst marketers. They don't advertise their product. When they do, they advertise it in a way that makes you not want to buy it. Almost willful, it seems. Well, let me tell you, it's time that you, as an American, began to change the paradigm of this. You don't wait for these idiots up on Capitol Hill to do it for you, because they're never going to do it for you. They've already shown all the betrayal, all of the Judas goat that you need to see from them to know that they are never going to help you. They're interested only in maintaining their power and your ultimate demise or enslavement. And they don't really care which. There's plenty of us out there. So whether or not you're enslaved or you become the problem that they have to eliminate, they couldn't really care less. There's enough that will kowtow, kneel down, and accept the chains that they don't really care about you personally. But you can help defeat amnesty. And you better take an action right now to make sure that this does not get done until after the election in 2014. And I got to tell you why. One, first of all, this traitorous gang of 8 that's been out there pushing this nonsense, these people are a combination of both Republicans and Democrats. But they're traitors, all of them, the lot. Look at who they are. I mean, you're talking about McCain and you're talking about Lindsey Graham. Come on, you got to be kidding me. That liver-lipped piece of trash. I mean, he's no Republican. He's no conservative. He's not even... Anyway, here's the point. How are you going to fight this? Well, let me tell you how we're going to fight this. And I'm expecting you to be an army active. Here's how you're going to do it. You're going to take some of these articles that I post up, and you're going to take them, and you don't have to be articulate. You don't have to be, real effusive. You don't have to be, some great and magnificent orator. All you've got to do is take one or two of these articles and put up a link on a piece of paper, cut and paste it into a Word document or whatever piece of software you've got, and take the list of the crimes that have been convicted, that these 36,000 criminal aliens have been convicted of, and then I want you to print out 100 of them. Go down to the store and buy yourself a ream of paper. It's 500 pieces of paper. And I'd like you to spend $12 on a print cartridge, no color, just black and white. Make 100 pieces. If you can make 500, make 500. And then carry them around with you. And you better start sharing them in your church. You better start sharing them in your school, at your work. You can post it up on a billboard in a store. When you go into the store, the grocery store, there's billboards all over the wall for people who want to give away puppies and sell a motorcycle. Stick it up on the billboard. And then swing back the next day and make sure that you check it and put another one up when some amnesty apologist yanks it down. You can sit there and have a couple of them rolled up in your pocket. And when you're standing there in the line at the store and you're talking to somebody who's behind you in the line, and if you're not talking to somebody in the line behind you, then you've missed an opportunity. Your job as right now is a verbal warrior. A verbal warrior. Use the tools, use the weapon, use the skill set that you have. What is that weapon? Your mouth. I can't talk like you. I've heard that a million times. Okay, great. Then don't talk like me. Just make sure it's printed out on a piece of paper so that any knucklehead that reads it gets it. And hand them the piece of paper and say, did you know about this? Make sure if you're smart that you put the number and the phone number and the name and the email address of your Congress rep and your two senators on the paper. And then say, we can stop this by calling these people. Would you be willing to do that? You can go to a town council meeting. You can go to a school board meeting. And you don't even have to go to the school board. meeting. You don't have to attend the meeting. Just go there and hand these pieces of paper out to people that are at the meeting. Find where people are and hand them out. Do you run a business? Put 50 of these on a counter. And every person who walks in, just slide one across and say, I just thought you might want to know this. Are you doing your part? You can bring a pile to a political function. We're in a political year. You can walk, who better than politically involved people for you to talk to? Who better? You can sit there with a pile of these and go to a political function. Go to a political function for a party you don't even like. You want to get smart about it? Bring yourself one of these little microphones and a speaker thing or a megaphone and stand outside so that they can't accuse you of doing something wrong. And set up, I don't care if you wear a sandwich sign or whatever it is that you got to do, stand there with a poster and hand these out. Bring a bullhorn. Make noise. America, arise and be counted. Be counted. Be fierce and be fearless. Be courageous and speak out. Especially when your voice shakes with fear. If you're not willing to do that, then you are not part of our solution. You are part of our problem. Don't let your apathy make you, or your fear, make you stand on the side. You're a leader. I don't care if you're a leader of one. You're a leader. Act like one. Take the initiative and do something. Well, I'm embarrassed to do that. Are you going to be embarrassed when you're outvoted by a bunch of illegals who don't belong here and steal your country from you? You should be more embarrassed to show your family and your friends and your coworkers and your associates that you don't have the balls to do anything. Now that's embarrassing. Here's the deal, folks. You're either going to fight now when the risk to you is low, and I mean low. What is the risk? That somebody's going to say something mean to you? Oh, you shrinking violet. I feel so bad for you. What? You're going to be what? Shamed into silence? Is that what you're afraid of? You got to be kidding me. What? Cuz somebody says, "Why? Everybody should have a right to be here." No, they shouldn't. Prove me why. Here's reason why I think you're wrong. And when the next person in line looks over to see what the commotion is, hand them one. Why are you afraid, America? Why are you letting your fear steal your country? Fear of what? Fear of what? Fear of someone saying something not nice to you? Fear that someone may get violent with you because you're handing this out? Well, guess what? If someone gets violent with you and says, "Now you get out of here or I'm going to knock your lights out," that's all the proof that you need that you're right. Why would you stand silently by and watch America's Got Talent or some soap operatic nonsense crap you're watching on TV? Stand in front of a store and hand out flyers to every person that comes. Go to the local food store. Go to the local shopping center. Go to a mall and just stand there and hand out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. Will people yell at you? So what? So what? Do you have an obligation to preserve and save this country for the children that you have said or thought at some point in your life, I will do whatever it takes, I would kill to protect my child? Really? You would? You mean to tell me you would kill to protect your child? You, the same person who's afraid to go stand in front of a store and hand out a flyer? How tough are you? You see, the shame of this is that we're responsible for allowing this to happen. If you wake them up on this issue and you strike a nerve, how do you know that they won't become the next leader? How do you know that the next Billy Graham of anti-immigration isn't in the crowd that you handed a sheet or a flyer to? How do you know? How do you know that the next Charlton Heston of NRA fame, but someone who will proselytize and argue and forcibly take the position and make a difference, isn't one of the people that you brought to awareness, you awakened? If you're a parent, you've said at some point, or you've thought to yourself at some point, I'd give my life for my kid. Really? Let me tell you something. It may come to that. But I don't believe you. You know why I don't believe you? Because you won't stand in front of a mall with a piece of paper. And if you won't do that, then you surely won't give your life for your child. I'm tired of Americans who talk big and don't do anything. If you are not going to fight, then shut up and go home. But I got to tell you, no more empty words, no more nonsense. You're either in this with us or you're against us. It's that simple. What do you have to do to be with us? You have to help. You have to help. Whatever small way. You're a leader. I don't care if you're a leader of one. When you're standing in that grocery store line and you hand that flyer to the guy or the gal behind you, then you're a leader of one. If you stand in front of a crowd at your church and you expose this and you talk about it on a Tuesday night meeting, then you're a leader of however many are sitting out there in the pews. If you show this to 5 guys at work, you're a leader of 5. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. I got to tell you, Friday, May 16th, if you're local in our area here, there is a dinner being held for a young boy who has been diagnosed with Langerhans cell histiocytosis. That's a rare form of cancer. His family travels to St. Louis for medical treatment every week, and they're going to be holding a spaghetti supper at the Willow Springs Police and Fire Department. It's going to be $5 a plate, and it'll include spaghetti, meatballs, vegetable drink, and so forth and so on. And it's going to be held at the fire department. If you want to bring a dessert to donate, they're going to have a Chinese auction or a silent auction later on. If you want to donate and you're a local business person and you want to, or you want to just donate some money, you can do that. If you're a local business and you want to donate a product that they can auction off, please do that. If you want to, you can call the Willow Springs Police Department, and you can call Chief Dunn, Chief Foster, or you can call City Hall in Willow Springs for questions or to ask any further information about how you can help this young fella. Team Owen is what this is being called. Make sure that you're a part of it. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now. All right. Hey, America, are you pissed off yet? Not? Really? You're not man enough to take some action yet? Wonder what you're waiting for. You waiting till it's one of your kids? You waiting till it's your daughter or your son that is killed by a drunk driver who was just released from prison? Because he was an illegal alien, not because he did something worthwhile to be released for? Well, let me just give you some statistics real quick so you get it. And then we're going to get on to our second topic, which is the CIA's Brennan, a Muslim convert, by the way, at the highest levels. I mean, this is the guy who runs the CIA. He's outraged by Snowden. Really? Outraged by Snowden. He's outraged by Snowden and by the stuff that's going on. He's defending drones, and he's got this whole interview that's up on fusion.net. You can find a link to it on our website or in the description section of this video. So I got to ask you, why is it that America isn't outraged by his treason? Because, I mean, the guy is clearly, here's a guy who was involved in Benghazi. He says he's looking for answers on Benghazi. He better look inside his own pants. I'm outraged by a Muslim convert who holds the keys to the greatest secrets the nation has. I'm outraged by a man who is outraged that his Dogs of War game is exposed. I'm outraged by treason. And you ought to be too. Before we get there, I want you guys to just understand the implications of the last crew of these criminal illegals who were released. In August 2012, a congressional report came out that stated that the last, between 2008 and 2011, when the last batches of illegals were released, subsequently these same people, and by the way, the numbers were much lower than this 36,000, they subsequently were charged with, get this, an additional 16,226 crimes that included 19 murders, 142 sex crimes, and thousands of drunk driving offenses, thousands of drug crimes, and other felonies. So let me ask you something. Here we have 36,000 illegal criminals who have been released inside of our border. It's treason. It's treason. And the last time that happened, there were 19 murders and 142 sex crimes. So let me ask you this. If your son is a victim, if your daughter is a victim, if your wife is a victim of rape by one of these people who's released, and you didn't stand in front of a store or speak at your church or talk about it to the guys at work, how are you going to sleep at night? I'm tired of Americans who talk big and do nothing. Either fight with us or admit defeat. And if you're going to do that, do me a favor. Stay out of my sight. John Brennan, the head of the CIA, became the director of the CIA in March of 2013. So he's been in the job a little over a year. Edward Snowden exposed the CIA, among others, including the NSA and the FBI and all these other agencies, right after that. And this guy actually has the nerve to be outraged at Snowden. Outraged? You mean, are you outraged when the former CIA NSA boss, who was General Michael Hayden, just admitted that we kill people overseas, not based on some kind of empirical evidence, but based on, quote, and this is his words, ladies and gentlemen, not mine, we kill people based on metadata. Well, let's see. As I recall, the president said, we're really not listening to your conversations and reading all your mail. All we're looking is the metadata. Well, isn't it funny that Michael Hayden just admitted that we kill people based on metadata? So why aren't you outraged about that, John Brennan? He actually had the nerve to say, and this is his words, not mine. This is John Brennan, the CIA director. I think I am, first of all, outraged that there are individuals who decided to take upon themselves to reveal some of the very, very important capabilities that this country has in place to keep Americans safe. What did I tell you, and what have I been saying to you time and time and time again about the phrase, keep America safe? It's a code word. It's a catchword. You know what it is? It's the go back to sleep word. It's the phrase that doesn't activate you. It's the phrase that puts you back to sleep. It's the phrase that pushes your off button. In a response to polls that show that the younger demographic supports the Snowden revelations, here's what Brennan had to say about that. I think most of the young people don't even understand what, in fact, he has done and the implications of it. No, we understand exactly what he's done, and we understand exactly what you've done. We understand, John Brennan, that you're guilty of treason, that you should be charged, that you should be tried, and that you should be put to death. That's what we understand. I'm not young. I get it. You're a traitor. You and your dogs of war are out there running around on the planet, wreaking havoc everywhere you go. You've turned this nation into this imperial little dynasty run by a bunch of corporatocracy oligarchs. You're playing the game, and we're sick of it, and we're sick of you. We're sick of your ilk. We're sick of the crew that you run with. We're tired of the whole mess. You've got a power trip. We don't. The truth is, Snowden did what everybody in every agency ought to do. Blow the whistle. You know why he didn't tell Congress? Because that inept bunch of traitors would have sat on their hands. You know why he didn't go to the Department of Justice? Look at Eric the traitor Holder. I'm going to talk about him in just a minute, where he says, in our next segment, where he says he has no plans to investigate the secret waiting lists and the deaths of veterans at VA hospitals. Proven death. Now, here's a piece of human excrement that will jump into any voter ID fray or any potential or alleged racist comment he can find. But talk about real death of real people, not to mention veterans, and crickets. Crickets. General Michael Hayden, he's admitted publicly to mass murder. He came right out and he said himself, we kill people based on metadata. Let me ask you something. How long will it be before those people are not only Americans in foreign lands? You're going too far. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. It won't be long before we will see an American killed on American soil utilizing probably a drone attack or something of similar ilk based on metadata. In fact, I guarantee you they've already happened. We just don't know about it yet. You know why? One, the Ministry of Propaganda is not an investigative journalist organization. They're not all they do is they read from a teleprompter that's published and issued to them by this administration and the progressive left. They're not journalists. They're not investigators. They're nothing. They're script readers. That's what they are. Script readers. You know, remember when you were 5 years old and you sat in kindergarten, all of you sat cross-legged in a semicircle around your teacher who sat up in a chair and read you Dick and Jane? Same thing. She didn't write it. She just read it. Michael Hayden has admitted that the Obama administration is murdering people around the world based solely on metadata collected by him and other intelligence agencies. He admitted it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's outrage. That's an outrage. Why isn't CIA Director John the Traitor Brennan upset about that? I'll tell you why. Because these two are euphemistically, spooning in the middle of the night. The CIA and the NSA. You got to be kidding me. Hayden, he's a retired general, and he is a member, in good standing apparently, of the Council on Foreign Relations, the most traitorous organization that most Americans don't even know exists. We're surrounded, led. Every person that is of a public view to you in political arena is a traitor. Everyone. Everyone. Without fail. If they're playing the game, if they're participating, if they have allowed it to happen under their watch, they're guilty of treason. You see, when you know what's happening and you don't do anything, you're just as guilty. If you sat there, I know a young girl. I'm going to tell you this little story. I know a girl. She's in her 20s. And she got involved. She got involved with some people where she was doing drugs. And the boyfriend went to another place where he could buy drugs, and he attempted to steal the drugs and rob the guy of his drugs. The guy pulled a knife and stabbed this kid and killed him. So the robber got stabbed by the drug dealer who he was trying to rob. She knew that he was going to go there and try to rob the guy. In fact, they got texts out of her phone. And they convicted her of an accessory to manslaughter. An accessory to murder. She got a 7-year prison sentence for that. Why? Their argument was, you should have called the police. Their argument was, you had an obligation to notify the police that this was going to go down, and a life wouldn't have been lost as a result. Who can argue with that? Does that give you pause for any people in any of these agencies, any people in Capitol Hill, any of the judges, any of the executive administration? They all have the same guilty knowledge. They all know what's going on. They all know what's happening. They all know what's going on with the CIA and the NSA. And even if they don't know the specific details, just as she didn't know she wasn't there. She never went there. She just knew he was going to go. And they saw a text that proved it to them. She said, "Are you okay? Is everything all right over there? Did you get what you went for?" And that was enough for them to convict her of accessory. Don't tell me that these people on Capitol Hill don't know that this metadata is being used. Don't tell me that these people on Capitol Hill don't know that what Snowden was talking about. They knew. They've been briefed before. And if they weren't briefed, it's because they didn't show up to a briefing. Do you remember when this all came out and got exposed? The NSA was coming out and saying, but we did brief them. We called them into meetings. Now, many of them jumped on an airplane and went home for the weekend, and they avoided the briefing, and you can bet your bottom dollar the NSA carefully planned to make sure that it was on a Friday night at 6 o'clock. You know, there's an old phrase in the legal circles that says, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And when you have accepted a position and a role and a job where you are involved in policy making and you have accepted a role to represent either your country or your people, then you are held to a higher standard. And so you are even less excused for not knowing the law than would be Joe Sixpack. You see, people like this guy Brennan are misguided, and they're traitors. They're misguided because He actually had the nerve to say the first and foremost important responsibility of the president, the commander-in-chief, is to keep Americans safe from harm. No, it's not. No, it isn't. Find that in his oath. Find that anywhere in the constitutional documents. Find that anywhere in a job description. That's not his first responsibility. His first responsibility is to faithfully execute the laws. And you keep Americans safe from people like you, John Brennan. Keeping people safe is not just a function of keeping them safe from Al-Qaeda, the Phantom Menace. Keeping people safe is also keeping them safe from the likes of John Brennan and Michael Hayden. Keeping them safe from people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Keeping the media safe from people like Chuck Schumer, who wants to license journalists. Keeping the American people safe from people like Tom Wheeler, the FCC director, who wants to put net neutrality in place and monitors in the newsrooms. That's just as damaging. People like Janet Yellen, the head of the Federal Reserve, and Bernanke before her, and Greenspan before that, and Gaitner before that. You see, keeping us safe doesn't necessarily mean keeping us safe from the horde. There's more than just one threat. The truth of the matter is, America, we're so far down the road at this stage in the game. You know, you ever hear the old phrase, I don't understand that guy. He'll swim 3/4 of the way across the river and then give up and turn back. Well, why would you do that, right? You're 3/4 of the way across. You can continue the other quarter, or you give up and you turn around and you got to swim 3/4 back. It's far longer to come back than it is to keep going. Well, let me tell you something, America. We are 3/4. In fact, I think we're actually much further. We're probably 9.9 of the way to a total oligarchy and totalitarian society where government is your absolute dictatorial master and you are nothing but a worker bee slave. Your options are limited. You are told what you're going to... You know what Common Core is about? Common Core is about making sure that there's a group of little automatons. They're teaching your children to read technical manuals, government technical manuals, not Moby Dick. You know why? Because they don't want the kid to think for themselves. And when your kid has been trained to push the button 6,211 times a day during his or her 8-hour shift, that's all they're trained for. They don't want your kid to learn how to read. They don't want your kid to learn how to do math. You don't need math to push a button. You don't need to read to push a button. You only know how to read just to read the technical manual so that you make sure that you push the button frequently enough and with the right amount of pressure. What part of slavery don't you get? This is a plantation of 50 states. And any argument you want to try to make to the contrary is either propaganda or Kool-Aid that you've drunk. We are enslaved to a small collective group of oligarchs. You know, the likes of the people who sit on the Council of Foreign Relations, the bankers who run the Federal Reserve, the Michael Haydens of the world, the John Brennans of the world, the Barack Obamas of the world, the Chuck Schumers and the John McCains. These are your masters. I don't respect any of those people enough to spit on them if they were on fire and aflame. Why would I allow those people to be my master? But our time is up. You know what I mean? Our time is up, America. We're done. We're finished. The republic is gone. It's dead. We have one of two choices. We can apply the paddles and bring it back to life, or we can put pennies on its eyes. Those are the two choices we have. Those are the only two choices we have. You can either apply the paddles or you can apply the pennies. The question is, which is it going to be? Which are you going to do? The truth is, we know what to do. We're just afraid to do it. You know, I've read you this quote many times, but I'm going to read it to you again, and I want you to look at it in a different context. Guy's name is Patrick Henry, and he said, "It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps down from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. For I know that not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." Now, most people hear that, and the last sentence is the one that they take to heart. The statement, give me liberty or give me death. You missed the point of it. The point of it, the whole thing, was simply this. And if you read it in its right context, you'll understand what the real core, what was the hinge pin that holds this whole thing together. What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? What do you have that is so valuable to you that you will give up your liberty and your freedom for it? What, your job? That mortgage? The car payment? The boat payment? The four-wheeler payment? What, the china in the cabinet? The antiques that your grandmother left you? The farm you live on? What is your addiction to that stuff? That you would stand here and give up your freedom. What is it that you wish? There's a phrase in the Bible that says that you will be led by that which you find the most valuable. Ask yourself the question, what is it that's your master? What is your master? A bunch of things? A bunch of ideas that are fantasy about what it should be like? You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Eric Holder. No plans to investigate the deaths at the VA clinics. Wow. I mean, this is a guy who will jump on anything that says black or racism, down to whether or not, you get the vote. That's not death. We'll be right back.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I will be your host this morning. Well, I see a ton of you folks out there on the web this morning. I see folks out there in Norfolk. That would be Virginia. Mayhaps a government agency. Philadelphia, I see St. Mary's out there. I see Chicago out there. Muncie, Indiana, I'm assuming. I see folks out there on the West Coast. I see folks out there in the upper Midwest. Welcome, all of you. Thanks for joining with us. We are here in our third segment out of four. This morning we covered the Ministry of Propaganda, or the mainstream media, as you like to refer to them, and how they've been silent on criminal immigrants being released back into the public. Where is the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda about talking to you about that? And crickets. Alternative media has got it all over the place. Thousands, 36,000 people guilty of 88,000 crimes, willfully, knowingly released back into our population. That's like sitting there and saying to me, you know, I'm going to go and I'm going to show up at this big party and I'm going to pour a bunch of venomous snakes over the railing right into the middle of the dance floor where everybody's at. Would that be a crime? Hello? Your president, Barack Hussein Obama, ICE, Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, they're guilty as charged. So is Eric the Traitor Holder, the number one law enforcement officer in the nation, who is got to be the most illegal, inept, unqualified, traitorous, two-bit piece of human excrement ever to be a part of government. This is a guy I look at and I want to vomit. He is a liar. He's a racist. He's an ideologue. He's an abuser of power. He's a minion, which doesn't even, I mean, you know, it's one thing when you got this megalomaniacal desire to be the king. This guy doesn't have a desire to be the king. He doesn't even have that much balls. He just wants to be the chief executioner for the king. He's a guy who delights in sadism. Political, economic, criminal sadism. He says he doesn't have any reason or plans to investigate the deaths of veterans at VA hospitals. 40 veterans we know empirically are dead as a result of these double waiting lists. These are men, and I'm assuming women. I don't know whether they were made up of men or women or both or just men. And they died while waiting to see a doctor. How criminal is that? You know, I didn't know a single one of them. Not one. I don't know whether they were young. I don't know if they were old. I don't know if they were retired. I don't know if they fought in World War I, World War II, or Vietnam. I don't know if they fought in Korea. I don't know if they fought in Iraq. I don't know if they fought in Afghanistan. I don't know if they fought in some far-off jungle that I can't even name because it's a secret. I don't know if they just push cans and were a logistics operator in some backwater somewhere in a fort somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But I know they deserve better than that. I know that every single last one of those 40 had more integrity in his pinky than Eric Holder has in his entire flippin' body. I know that those men or women had more honor in their name than he has in his life. I know I am sick and tired of hearing about how injustice is done to this group, or the gay, or the black, or the yellow, or the red, or the green, or the orange. But ain't none of them dying over it. I know that those men and women wouldn't have been treated that way if they were illegal immigrants. And that's a crime of universal proportions. Cosmic. I know that if those men or women had just shown up at an emergency room and weren't veterans, they would have been treated. I know they could have been on welfare and gotten better treatment than they got. I know that some of those men and women probably were wounded in defense of this country. And I hear all the arguments that, you know, just because you're in the Army or the military doesn't make you a hero. I don't care about that. I don't care. I don't care about scumbags like Brennan and Hayden who make these wars with their secrets and their spider webs of deceit and lies and corruption. I don't care about any of that. I'll tell you what I do care about. I care about a young man. I care about a young woman who says, I love my country enough that I am going to put my life at risk or put my life on hold while I do my duty, my part for it. And whether you agree with where they're sent or what they do while they're there, whether or not you agree with how they got there, you can't take from them the respect and the honor which they're entitled to for having made the sacrifice on your and my behalf. They didn't need to know you personally. Were all of them that altruistic in their motive? I don't know. But I got to tell you this. It's a special person that says, I'm willing to put my life on hold. I'm willing to forego college. I'm willing to forego some industry job that I can get. I'm willing to forego being in business. I'm willing to forego being rich, trying to make my way in the world, maybe make my fortune. Instead, I'm going to go take this job where I got to basically be taken care of because they pay me so little I can't really even afford to take care of myself. See, those people are entitled to better than we give them. They're entitled to better. Not only because we promised it to them, which we did, and we have no right to break that promise, but they're owed better than that because they did something for us that they didn't have to do. You see, a politician who goes into a job as a politician, they go in there not because they think they're going to be able to change the world or do some kind of service. I mean, I'm sure some of them do. But the vast majority of this group that's in there today, they go in there because it's an opportunity for them to climb not the corporate ladder, the political ladder. I mean, before they're in college, they're working as an aide because daddy's got a connection to some senator or congressman. And they're groomed. You think it's just happenstance that somebody says, I think I'm going to run for office? Public service, they call it. Ask yourself, who's really done public service? Ask yourself that. You think any of these ex-congressmen or ex-senators or ex-judges or ex-administration officials from previous administrations, you go all the way back to Nixon, you think any of them would have waited a year for a colonoscopy when their ass was bleeding? Do you? You think any of these people would have waited for an x-ray when they were sitting there having trouble breathing? Ask yourself that question. You think any of this current crop of politicians will have to wait to go and see a doctor because they can't stop throwing up and they can't figure out what's wrong? Because they got a lump in their head or a lump in their chest that they got while they were over in some jungle and some dipstick was spraying some kind of chemical on trees? The greatest risk Eric Holder and his ilk take is that they might spill ketchup on their tie at lunch. Paid for by you, of course. The greatest risk they take is that they may stand up there in a podium, in a room full of suits that cost $1,000 a crack, and somebody might throw a shoe at them. These men and these women who sat there and begged for an appointment with a doctor, you say that what happened in Nazi Germany can't happen here? You're wrong. It just did. 50 Americans dead. 50 Americans dead so that some pencil-pushing bureaucrat could make it look like their list was being pushed ahead? Is that worth lives? A good quarterly report? Really? What's wrong with us? And what's wrong with him? When he would be so partisan as to say, I have no intention on looking into this. That's criminal. That's criminal. And if you don't see that, we got nothing further to talk about. I didn't know any of these veterans. I didn't know their names. I didn't know their wives or their husbands. I didn't know their children. But I know that no matter what else, they were entitled to better than we just gave them. And they shouldn't have died in agony, whether physical or mental, at the hands of their own country. So some piece of human excrement who's running around making 2.5 times what they ought to be making can flash a good report card at their next quarterly review. I don't even have to say to you that if this is what it's like for the VA now, what do you think healthcare will be like in the next 10 or 15 years for you and your kids and your family and your father or mother or husband or wife? Because that should be painfully obvious to you. I do know one thing. You're either going to be willing to do whatever it takes to take this nation back from the hands of these monsters. Just outrage isn't enough. You need to take action. You need to either fight now, while the risk to you is non-existent, or you'll be left with the option to fight to the death when there's no other option. Either you will arise and you will speak out and you will be counted and you will fight fiercely and courageously, and you're going to speak out now, even when your voice and your knees shake with fear. Or when the time comes you'll buckle. You'll buckle and cower in fear. Shame. All right, we're going to take a break. Friday, the 16th of May, if you're local in our area, there's a spaghetti supper being hosted by the Willow Springs Police and Fire Department jointly for a young man who has a rare form of cancer. The family has to take him every week on about a 5-hour ride to a hospital, special hospital that treats him. He's a young fellow with a bright future. He's a handsome little guy. He's the son of a local police officer who's a resource officer in one of the schools. And they're holding this $5 a plate spaghetti dinner to try to raise some funds to help his family out with the costs. There's going to be a silent auction. If you're a business area person and you'd like to make a donation to that, or you'd just like to make a monetary or financial donation, that's accepted too. But if you've got a product that you'd like to put up as an auction item that they can sell off and make sure the money gets to the family, you can do that too. If you want to bring a dessert, they're going to auction off desserts. So make a cake or a pie or something like that and show the world what you can do and help this young fella out. You can call Chief Dunn or Chief Foster, or you can call from the fire department, or you can call the City Hall of Willow Springs, Missouri. If you're not from this area and you'd still like to help, you certainly can do that. You just call Willow Springs, Missouri Police Department and ask for Chief Dunn, or the Willow Springs Fire Department in Missouri, and you ask for Chief Foster. Or you can call Willow Springs City Hall. Ask for details. They'll be more than happy to give them to you. This is on Friday, the 16th of May. That's this Friday at 5 p.m. And it's a spaghetti supper. And we'd be grateful, and I'm sure that Owen will be too. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to tackle our last and final topic. The U.S. postal system is $100 billion in the red. Unfunded liabilities. And the Ministry of Propaganda and the mainstream media are hiding it from you. Why? Why is all this money being squandered? Trillions of dollars. America, aren't you tired yet of treason? What will it take for the straw to be placed upon the camel's back and for you to say, I can't take it anymore? I get funny mail from folks. I get email, and once in a while somebody will, mail a donation to our post office box. And they'll send a little letter or something with it. And one of the comments that I like the best, which is kind of, a reverse compliment, if you will, but I always want to look at it with a critical thinking eye and say, wait a minute now. And they mean it well, and they mean it in the right spirit. And generally the comment is, and I'll have to paraphrase it because there's so many variants on it, but I have a hard time listening to you because I'm either, if I listen in the morning, I'm angry all day, or if I listen at night, I'm an insomniac because I'm so angry I can't sleep. There's two sides to that coin. One is it's a heck of a thing to go through life knowing that every person you touch is angry, and you made them that way. By the flip side of the fence, or the other side, the truth is that that means I'm doing something right. They're not mad at me. They're mad at the message I bring. And I look at it and I say, if what it takes for America to stand up and fight back is people that are, angry as a result of what I have to say or talk to them about, that's okay with me. I don't, I don't take it personally. I do take some negative criticism personally. I guess it's impossible not to, right? I'm usually a fairly thick-skinned guy, but once in a while I'll read a comment, somebody will put it in on YouTube, or I'll get an email from somebody and I'll be like, wow. It just takes the wind out of my sails, You try not to let those things bother you because the bigger mission is what it's supposed to be about. And there's a lot of positive reinforcement, but there's a lot of negative too. I mean, I get hate mail. You should see some of it. I never show you guys that, but I get some sometimes that's pretty harsh. But the hate mail actually encourages me that I'm doing the right thing too, because I see the illogic, if you will, of some of the arguments, or I see it as a personal indictment against me because they don't like something I said. But they generally, and of course, I don't often have a conversation about it because, it's a one-sided thing. I don't respond to mail like that. But I can see by the way that they've written it or whatever the case may be that, they don't have a leg to stand on logically, with good reasoned skills. There's nothing. It's just emotion, right? Emotion pouring forth. We've gone from a nation and a planet, frankly, that has left the principles of logic and reason behind, and we've adopted emotion. When a government operates and a religion operates exclusively on emotion, it has no factual basis for its existence. It's the problem with all of this. What our not only domestic and United States society is collapsed under, but the weight of all of this nonsense globally. Everybody wants to belong to something bigger than themselves. Everybody. It's a human thing. We all want something bigger than us to be a part of. And, some people fill it with, some people fill it with drugs and alcohol. Some people, because there's this void, right? It's a void that's in our lives. Some people fill it, with religion. Some people fill it with politics. Some people fill it with just nonsensical apathy. In other words, they're never willing to, or the apathy of never being willing to look inside and be introspective. When I was a younger guy, I used to, I lived with a woman for a while who was a person who would never, ever could be in a room by herself. Because it meant that she had only one person that she could have a conversation with. And that was not acceptable. People who, must constantly have outside stimulation in their lives. They always have to have a television on or a radio on. They can never just sit quietly because they don't want to think. They don't want their mind to be drawn inward. It's a dangerous way to live your life. One, you never really get to know you. And two, you can't possibly hear the inside small voice over the din of all of the, all of that noise around you that stimulation around you that you've desired to have, just to drown that specific voice out. I think a lot of people, they use that as a way to get around having to face reality. And it's not just individuals. It's also groups. It's organizations. I mean, where are the legal immigration groups speaking out against these 36,000 convicted criminal aliens who were released from detention? The box of snakes poured onto the dance floor at the party amongst us, the innocents. Where's the legal immigration groups? Those who did it the right way. Why aren't they speaking out? Where's the moderate Muslim groups speaking out against what's going on with that Boko Haram and the kidnapping and God only knows what kind of brutality to those 300 young girls? Tell you what, if one of those was my daughter, man, I'd be getting a group of other fathers together and arming ourselves and going into the jungle to find them. I don't care if I got to crawl, I got to walk barefoot and crawl on my hands and knees. This segment is about the United States Postal Service and $100 billion in the red. But it's also about the Department of Education spending $100 billion a year. And what are we getting for it? Well, there's two articles that I'm going to link in the body of this description today. One is from cnsnews.com, which you should be visiting on a routine basis. It's an excellent alternative media site. And they got a hold of a report, which the National Center for Education Statistics, in 2013, they pulled the numbers for the Washington, D.C. schools, which spend a whopping, stunning $29,350 per student during the 2010 to 2011 school year. $29,350. And guess what? 81% were not proficient in reading or math. 81%. Actually, their number is 83%. 83%. 83% were not proficient in reading, and 81 were not proficient in math. Almost the same number. But stop right there, because it's not just the Washington, D.C. schools. I know what some of you were thinking. It shows you that D.C. Stop right there. It's not just D.C. It's also New York City. In fact, I talked to you about a report that came out probably a year ago. In New York City, 80% of the students who leave high school have to take remedial reading and math courses just to get into community college. We're not talking Ivy League here. We're just talking about community college. 80% of the students in leaving schools in Manhattan have to take remedial studies for reading and math just to get into a college that is, for all intents and purposes, not much more than an elevated high school. But it's not just New York. It's not just D.C. Mississippi, 80% not proficient. Alabama, 80% not proficient. And the list goes on and on and on. Are you trying to tell me that for $100 billion a year that we give, that we use, or the Department of Education out of the federal side of things uses, $100 billion, we can't have more than 20% proficiency in math and reading in our schools? You see, I dare say that even if we spent $1 trillion, we wouldn't get more for our money. Because the goal of these people, with their Common Core now, it's just another way to phase in the next layer. It's gonna continue to make things even worse. The goal of Common Core is not to make your child compatible with a kid coming out of China or Korea or a child coming out of Europe. The goal of Common Core is to create a caste system, an educational caste system, to find your kid, do, for all intents and purposes, an evaluation, and find out where their skill set lies, and that will be their job, not their choice. Well, some people are only suited for, it's not your choice to make that decision for them. And I got to tell you, just because somebody's well suited for one kind of work or another doesn't mean that they cannot change and migrate over time and become something better. And honestly, I'm a firm believer that everyone, I don't care how humble your prior education or your beginnings or or how dysfunctional your home life is. I mean, who is anyone, whether it's society or government, to dictate the rules that there's a ceiling over you and you're only fit for this box? That's what Common Core is about. All of this money we're spending, the post office is $100 billion in the hole. $100 billion? I mean, you got to be kidding me. How can that be possible? How can one agency, which is supposed to operate at a profit, be $100 billion in debts? Now, I get it. You know, Congress plays this game where they strip money from the post office and all that kind of nonsense. You know what? That's not an excuse. the payments that they owe are for benefits to retired workers. And, you know, I found an article and I posted it on our site and on Facebook and all that stuff about a CBS article about how these people were complaining that the post office is, you know, not delivering their mail, and that they found a bunch of mail thrown in the trash, literally in a garbage can, right? The post guy just took it and threw it all in a trash. But nowhere in this article or in the news story, and this was done by CBS out of Pittsburgh, but nowhere did they mention, I mean, they mentioned the outrage of mail being thrown in the trash, but nowhere did they mention the outrage of the post office being $100 billion in debt. Now, I got to ask you something. Which of those two is a bigger story? Let's see. They found a postal guy who was throwing mail in the trash. Okay, it's not good, you know. Somebody's going to miss their bill or their check, and it's going to be a problem. Or the post office is $100 billion in the hole, and nobody knows what to do about it. Which is the bigger story? I mean, you got to be kidding me. $85 billion is unfunded liabilities for benefits, including their retirees' health, pension, and workers' compensation liabilities. And $15 billion is borrowed and outstanding from the U.S. Treasury. And they've hit the statutory limit. So in other words, they're not allowed to borrow anything above this $15 billion. That's the legal limit that they can borrow. How are we supposed to, when we see this kind of thing, we see, you know, $5 billion spent on Obamacare websites. $5 billion. Those are for the state sites. We're not talking about the federal one. And these are for only the states that they paid to do the websites for. The vast majority didn't, right? And by the way, every one of the ones that they did pay for was an absolute abject failure. I mean, this stuff makes Solyndra and Fisker look like they were good deals. $500 million to Solyndra. Just evaporated like smoke. Compared to $5 billion for Obamacare websites that all have to be stripped and shut down and restarted, that Solyndra was a good deal. We should be thankful we got screwed for only $500 million. This is all money being spent to ensure your dependence and your enslavement. Your school systems, the Postal Service, all these state and federal agencies, creating a spider web of tracking and monitoring, databases, tracking your purchases and your and what you own, tracking your health care, your records, where you work, how much you make, what you communicate about, who you talk to, what's your circle of friends, what's your circle of influence. All of it has a sinister intent. No one who's intellectually honest at this point can deny that. Your school systems are doing everything they can to ruin your children. At $30,000 a student and 83% can't read, what other conclusion could there possibly be? Their argument is Common Core is going to fix it. We're in this problem because of the last Common Core-esque solution they had. And the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that. All of this tracking and monitoring and control over us All of it is sinister. All of it is nefarious. To keep you safe, you're told. What's your safety worth? Need I remind you of the phrase? And I read it to you earlier, but I'm going to read it to you again. What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is your life so dear or your peace so sweet that you would purchase it at the price of chains and slavery? I got to ask you, the black population screams about being forced to show an ID to vote. But when we talk about a network, a massive surveillance network set up to monitor their every move, they don't squeak a peep. Crickets. In order to get Obamacare, you've got to be virtually strip searched just to see a doctor. Where's the screams of outrage? America, you're out of time. And I've been talking about this for 3 years now. This program's been in play for 3 years. We've been at this for 3 long, brutal, thankless years. And I can tell you that the level of criticality that it's reached in that period of time, holy smoke. It hasn't gotten slightly worse. It hasn't gotten progressively worse. It's gotten infinitely worse. And this roller coaster hasn't even hit the steep slide yet. All right, we're going to wrap for the day. If you are local in the south central Missouri area, we've got a young fella here by the name of Owen. The young boy lives in Willow Springs. And on May 16th, on April 11th of last month, he was diagnosed with Langerhans cell histiocytosis. And his family has been running him up to St. Louis for medical treatments every week. That's about a 4-hour ride. It's expensive. They got to stay overnight, blah, blah, blah. He's a young fella. He's a handsome little guy. And his father is one of the police school resource officers. And so there's on Friday going to be at 5 p.m. at the fire department in Willow Springs, there's going to be a $5 a plate spaghetti dinner, and then there's going to be a silent auction. And if you are willing to show up for that dinner, by all means, we need everyone to attend that. If you're a business and you'd like to donate something through the silent auction that can be sold off and the money put in towards this fund, that would be even better. You can call Chief Dunn from the police department. You can call Chief Foster, or you can call City Hall for questions. You can find it on your website or on the website somewhere that it's Willow Springs, Missouri. And I'll find the number for you for tomorrow. But this is an important issue. This is something you can do directly to help a young fellow who really is in need of it. And I would be very appreciative if you would help our community in that way, local or national. Okay, folks, we're going to wrap for the day. If you want to communicate with me about anything, you can. If you want information about how to get a hold of Willow Springs, I'll look it up. Email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. I'll be sure to reply to you if I can. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. God bless, folks. Have a great day.